I'm continuing the interview with Andi Ali. This is tape number 6. We are in the HR room. The date is the 6th of March 2006. The time is 2:35 p.m. Those persons in the room are the same as those in the room before the tape change.
Okay, Andy, we were talking about Nick Ivel's complaint.
Yeah. So he doesn't give a precise date.
No.
So you were saying that on the I'm facing this on what?
Sorry,
probably.
Let me set this out properly to you.
Yeah.
An investigator's responsibility is to write a report based on the evidence that they find, and where the evidence is not clear-cut, to express a view on the balance of probabilities of whether the thing described is more likely to have happened than not likely to have happened. Sorry, I didn't express that very well. If there's something where the evidence on both sides is not clear, they have to make a decision on the balance of probabilities that either it did happen or it didn't happen. That report goes to the decision maker, who makes a decision based upon the evidence as expressed in that investigator's report, with the benefit of the representations from the parties, as to whether the complaint is upheld or not. Any conduct and discipline action follows on from that, but has a separate procedure.
So, well, the fact of the matter is, I have been found guilty, therefore, on the balance of because the decision maker thinks I probably did something. I may have been I may have been there when it happened.
You haven't been found guilty at the moment.
I have found guilty.
What has happened is that the complaints made by these 5 individuals have been upheld.
Yeah. But what's the difference between them upholding the complaints and me being found guilty of them?
Because there isn't a question of guilt at that stage.
Well, if there's not a question of guilt, I can't face disciplinary action then, can I?
As I say, the conduct and discipline action has a separate procedure.
So,
you're using the word guilt, which is an emotive word, and all I am saying is that at the present time, the conduct and discipline process hasn't run its course, and that the complaints against you have been upheld.
but the complaints against me have not been the complaints that I have put in have not been investigated, have they?
Well, they have been covered in the investigator's report, but you've made points to me today, and they are points that we must go away and look at as part of our investigation as to whether your complaints have been properly investigated or not.
Can you show me an investigator's report, because I must have missed out, where it says about the similarities between these complaints and the complaints by right-wing extremists?
It doesn't. Doesn't.
But you just said he wasn't investigated. That wasn't investigated. I put in a complaint against that. That's not been investigated. It's not even in the investigator's report.
Well, as I say, I think what has happened to your complaint against the 5 individuals is an issue that we need to look at. And I said we will look at it.
But it's not been looked at yet. It's the point I'm making.
If it hasn't been looked at yet, it will be looked at.
But why is it not being looked at yet? Why have
I don't know until I carry on with my investigation.
But it's discrimination. It's discrimination against me. It's racial discrimination.
That's your view. It's an issue that...
Oh, well, let me put it this way. So the civil service can be in no doubt. If the civil service do not come up with an adequate explanation of why the 5 white complainants had their complaints against me investigated, where I had a letter sent to me saying that I was going to be interviewed in relation to those complaints, but at the same time do not provide a satisfactory explanation of why I was not accorded the same courtesy, then you're going to a tribunal for racial discrimination.
Okay, yeah. I understand your position quite clearly, but at this early stage of investigation I'm not in a position to comment.
Where were we?
Nick Ivel's complaint, you were?
Yeah, going back to Nick Ivel, so he says many incidents have annoyed me. So that's too brief. What incidents? You know, no time, anything. a complaint should say, as I understand it, can you just tell me, in your opinion, what a complaint should do? It should state, what exactly is a complaint, the guide?
You would have to read what I've just given you. I'm not in a position to be word perfect on it, but clearly you should express your complaint with whatever details you can provide.
And what the outcome was?
Possible.
What outcome you would like?
What outcome you would like, indeed. Yeah.
And as much details as possible. And you should have taken, should you not, you should have taken steps beforehand, informal steps.
Yes.
And then you should have discussed it with your manager.
Yes.
5 minutes.
Which I don't see any of it in these complaints.
No, okay. There's an issue on the Nick Ivor complaint. This is the one that actually mentions I was appalled at this casual use of the race card.
Exactly. He's now used. I wish to draw attention to one of the many offensive phone calls which I could not help but overhear. Mr. Ali was in the habit of organising his personal life from the office, brazenly attempting to conceal his activities from management. About once a fortnight, a personal phone call will take a nasty turn and the bullying, hectic side of Mr. Ali's nature will take over. My example is, the investigators have never looked for those phone calls and found no proof of any phone calls. And if I'd made those phone calls, there would be records, there would be phone records.
There might be phone.
If he complained at the time, there would have been phone records. He doesn't give an expert. Why didn't he complain at the time?
You've made that point in the existing investigation.
Can I just point? I'd like to point out that this casual use of the race card, I actually find that quite racist in itself. And I know my TU fellow colleagues do. By even accusing someone that would use a race card is racist. Clearly. Because you are differentiating that someone will use something because of the colour of the skin, instantly racist in itself. So the comments that he's made there are racist. Why are the Inland Revenue or the HMRC not jumping on racist comments that colleagues are making in work?
7 minutes, 10 seconds.
Because that in itself, of accusing any colleague of using a race card, is offensive to anyone from any denomination.
7 minutes, 20 seconds.
Can I?
Yes, sorry, Andy.
My example is a phone call to Virgin Trains, who incidentally I've put in writing that no phone call ever existed, which I overheard, but this was certainly not eavesdropping. I had work to do. Mr. Ali was unhappy over some mix-up with his train tickets. Speaking to a humble clerk who had probably never met him, Mr. Ali turned extremely unpleasant and said, "Again, my memory is precise. You wouldn't be treating me like this if I was a white person. I was appalled at the casual use of the race card. A mix-up with tickets can happen to anyone." He's bringing race into it.
Can I just ask you to clarify for the purpose of the tape? Did this conversation with Virgin actually happen?
No.
No. Right.
And Virgin, I've put in writing now that they've got no history of me being abusive. They've got no history of me, ringing them up. And I was a student at the time, I still am, and I have a student rail card. But the thing with a student rail card is you get fantastic offers, but you can't buy the tickets over the phone.
You've said
because you need a photograph.
To go to the,
you have to have on your rail card it's got a photograph. And of course, ringing somebody up and giving them your ticket is useless. You've got to show your photograph to have it. Virgin, as I said, have already denied it. He's now using my race. He's now using my race. He said, "I used the race card. I used my race." Now, because he put that complaint in, and the civil service took me through the formal complaints procedure, they did not take my complaint that it was malicious. And in so doing, and that was discrimination. What makes it racial discrimination is the fact that he used my race. On this occasion, I immediately challenged Mr. Ali. He doesn't give the time and date again, by the way. On this occasion, I immediately challenged Mr. Ali. He did back down, but only because I threatened to involve management. The bandee, Anthony Stansfield, in fact overheard part of this.
9 minutes.
Despite Mr. Ali's childish attempt to hide what he was up to, Mr. Ali had revealed himself to be a dangerous person, and apologies nowhere near enough. A change in outlook and behaviour would have been the only answer. Unfortunately, this change has clearly not happened. I am aware that anyone can lose his or her temper on the phone. That was Mr. Ali's defence. There is no justification for being a bully. He's not accused me of bullying yet. He's just saying there is no justification for being a bully. Where is the complaint of bullying?
Well, I think in context he's accusing you of bullying this virgin person, but I agree, I accept that that isn't a matter that we would investigate as part of the departmental procedure.
And yet I was found guilty of it.
10 minutes.
I was found guilty of it simply because Nick Ivel said there is no justification for being a bully. There's not even a complaint of bullying there.
10 minutes.
Just bring up on a point here. Nick's commented that Andy backed down after he threatened him with management. Well, once again, is this not a stipulation that if Andy backs down from a situation, it shows that he's amenable and you can come and talk to him? This person, once again, has not tried to sit down and solve out any problems with Andy. They've gone straight down the conduct and discipline line and tried to discipline rather than sort the situation out.
Now, this is the bit, interesting bit. Other colleagues will corroborate that the bullying was continuous both on the phone and indeed towards certain people he worked with, though not me. I am speaking from an anguished position of observation. How will he know who will corroborate?
11 minutes.
I imagine there's an assumption built in there, but we don't know until he's spoken to, do we?
And then he says, although not towards me. It's like Phil Davis's complaint. Phil Davis said I didn't act funny to him. He's saying now that I wasn't towards him. This is getting, you know, you couldn't make this up. The next page. I was left with this fear. If Mr. Ali is willing to play the race card over a train ticket, what will he be like when the going really gets tough? And the going must get tough. Such behaviour is unacceptable both inside and outside the office. That's an opinion.
And it's very, very racist opinion.
11 minutes.
We have put complaints against this. We hope the civil service are going to take these complaints and eventually investigate. Summer 2003. Mr. Ali frankly admitted to skiving off work on one occasion in the past. You see, it's just summer. It's like Tony Smith, September. You know, dates. We want dates, not periods. Dates. Mr. Ali admitted to skiving off work on one occasion in the past. Doubtless there were others where the pressure was on at the University of Central Lancashire. To paraphrase what he had said to me, he had research to do at the university and his job was getting in the way. He phoned in sick and attended university in Preston when who should he see but social subs of the TCO? So he phoned in sick when? What day? And he's questioning my research just like Tony Smith did. The questioning my research on the BNP, so-called research.
12 minutes 30 seconds.
He phoned in sick and attended university in Preston where who should he see but social subs of the TCO? Organising and attending a course there. Mr. Ali admitted to feeling nervous about this unwelcome intrusion from work. In the light of this admission to me, I would like Mr. Ali's appalling sick record to be the subject of the closest possible scrutiny. Sorry, where's the complaint here? Those of us who take sick leave when we are ill get disheartened when people like Mr. Ali abuse the system and get away with it. There can be no doubt that Mr. Ali's so-called research has been impinging on his ability to do a third day's work at the TCO. Someone else criticising my research on the BNP. And if conclusion,
What grade is this person, Andy?
He was the same grade as me then.
I'd just like to ask why a colleague is asking questions about Andy's sick leave. The only people that that's anything to do with are Andy, HR and Andy's line manager and possibly the C2. For a colleague to be asking for forming you know, something about sick records, that's for a manager to impose, not for a colleague to have anything to do about. So once again, what he's actually doing there, you could actually say he's being an insubordinate to his manager by taking things away from his manager, and he's going once again by IR values for sticking his nose into business that's nothing to do with him, because sick is a personal issue. Now, Andy could have been off with that sick, or when he's been off with sick for a very, very personal issue that he may not wanted anyone in work to know about.
Conclusion, this is what he says. There are 3 episodes amongst many that have angered me. Slightly I could rest. write an essay on Mr. Ali's unprofessional conduct. Continued exposure to Mr. Ali has turned me into a permanently angry person at work, to the extent that some colleagues have started to worry about my health. Personally, I worry about his sanity, but judging by this, but that's another matter. I am certainly aware that the whole section has been adversely affected by Mr. Ali's laziness, bullying, political extremism, narcissism, and delusions of grandeur. We have been exposed to a very dangerous person, precisely what Phil Davis uses, and it's exactly what the BNP use, as I'll show you later in an article which includes me. My request now is not only that justice be done, but justice be seen to be done. Well, actually, that's somewhat that me and Nick can agree on. But that doesn't say when the complaints took place.
No.
It doesn't actually say where. The phone company who he says that I rung up, I've said they've got no record of it. I had a student rail card at the time, and you have a photograph. You cannot buy student rail card tickets on the phone because you photograph. He didn't complain about it at the time, and So Stubbs, by the way, witness. Why was So Stubbs not interviewed by Janet King and Dave Robinson?
Can I just... I have a little problem with this as well, in that he says, my request is now only that justice be done, but justice seen to be done. Well, that's saying, well, go ahead with your conduct and discipline, and then I want to see Andy kicked around the office for that.
I think you're stretching that.
Well, you know, he wants justice to be seen to be done. Once again, if something is taken out over Andy over conduct and discipline, it has got nothing to do with his colleagues, and it wouldn't be discussed about, and you are told it wouldn't be discussed about. So once again, he's sticking his nose into business which has got nothing to do with him. It's for his manager and his manager and C2 to deal with.
16 minutes, 10 seconds.
So basically, it doesn't say when these events took place to the day. There's no evidence I was actually at the tax credit office. And he doesn't even say these things happened at the tax credit office.
No.
That's a fact. I'm giving you facts here, not opinions. And treat that on its own. Where is the sexual harassment?
There isn't any in that, is there? No.
And if your complaint was to go in, is that from Phil?
No,
This one's Nick.
That's Nick. Nick said he had 3 problems with Andy. Well, they should be brought up as 3 individual concerns.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be sitting there waiting and going, you know what, now I've hit 3, I can put a complaint in against Andy. Each one should be looked at individually.
What sexual harassment, and what was the other you said for
Race, which is referred to.
which is referred to in there, but he didn't give a precise date.
No.
Tim Fisher,
10 seconds.
no date, doesn't say when it was sent. I would like to make a formal complaint against one of my colleagues, Mr. Andi Ali, who works in the DCI MIS Team Floor 11 Unicentre. Mr. Ali has worked with the same management here as me since September 2002. Prior to him and myself joining the DCI MIS team in March 2003. We hardly had much contact, although I overheard Mr. Ali's political points of view he would spontaneously sprout on about. My problems with Mr. Ali began in April of 2003, no precise date again.
Well, I mean, that is a common feature of much of it.
Of course, but I mean, there's no evidence I was actually at work when these...
No.
And of course,
there's no need to repeat these points. You've made those
It
points
could be more
very
importantly.
Well,
It's
yes,
like
yes,
sending
okay,
somebody to prison for committing burglary, and then admitting there was no evidence the person was there. Mr. Ali had overall control of the filing of DCI work. On one occasion, my bandy asked me to find a DCI test check that had been filed away by Mr. Ali. The filing I looked through was in a real mess, and it took me some time to find this particular case. I mentioned to Mr. Ali the problems I had in finding the case and how bad the filing was, only for Mr. Ali to reply, "People with a grudge against me could easily have done this to get me into trouble. Isn't that right, Tim?" I couldn't believe this response, but ignored it in order to keep good relations with him. After that incident, I regularly became the butt of Mr. Ali's so-called humour. I regularly get comments from Mr. Ali about me being thick and stupid. He will constantly say on a regular daily basis, "God, Tim, you're thick. Tim, the lift doesn't go all the way to the top floor with you. Tim, you're an idiot." These comments would be spontaneous, said for no reason. He would also ask me to come over to his desk. I thought he wanted to discuss work, but Mr. Ali would make further comments such as, make me a cup of tea, clean my shoes now. This behaviour continues from April 2003 until mid-September 2003, when Mr. Ali went off work on long-term sick. I actually went in October, not in September. If I'm sending emails on the 3rd of October, I couldn't have been on long-term sick in September.
And you went off sick.
But it's an important fact.
It's inaccurate.
It does show it's inaccurate. Are the civil service really therefore finding me guilty of things where they can't say I was there? I probably did it. I may have been at work, and an inaccurate report.
19 minutes 40
These
seconds.
incidences have been witnessed by a number of people, including, wait for it, Phil Davis, Nicholas Ivell,
19
and Anthony
minutes,
Stansfield.
60 seconds.
What a coincidence. Phil Davis, Nicholas Ivell and Anthony Smith,
20
his fellow complainants. Mr. Ali also commented if I was offended by his behaviour comments, he would stop. I said his behaviour did offend me and I was and was unacceptable. Mr. Ali on this said he would stop, but only 10 minutes later he just continued his tirade of insults. When?
20 minutes.
No precise dates.
Seconds.
Tim's not told his line manager. He's not followed procedure. I mean, we are following the procedure laid down in the guide. Francis Pugh seems to be making a bit of this. He doesn't seem too keen when it comes to, against me, but...
Can I ask you something directly? I
Yeah.
mean, it comes out of this, some of the comments that Tim has made there, really, is it fair to say that some of the problems have arisen because of your unusual sense of humour?
20 50 seconds.
I think the problem is people's perception of Andy's sense of
That
humour.
may well be the case, yes.
Yeah, I mean, coming from someone who has an obscure sense of humour,
Okay.
I do know how some people sometimes do see things differently, but I think it's other. I do think the problem with some people is their perception of Andy's humour. Yeah.
But there is nothing wrong with having a sense of humour.
No, I'm not apportioning blame here. I'm just trying to get at what lies behind some of this stuff.
20 seconds.
But the fact of the matter is, he's not followed the guide and he doesn't say when.
I do think a lot of this with Tim could be down to a basic, and I think we know we get it in any office, is a clash of personalities. I think you're always going to have a situation where unfortunately we don't get on with everyone, and I think you come to you learn to live with that situation. But I think it's just two people who aren't seeing, who aren't working in the same direction as he was.
But we have to raise the question of why he didn't complain at the time. And more importantly, how does he know? He mentions a number of staff, including Phil Davis, Nicholas Ivell and Anthony Smith. That's a hell of a coincidence, given the circumstances. Anyway, on another occasion in August 2003, I was leaving the office and in the lift to go to the ground floor. Mr. Ali also got into the lift. There was no conversation between the purbers. The lift then stopped on one of the lower floors and 3 people got in. Mr. Ali suddenly asked me, how did your date go last night? I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. He then continued, with that bloke I was left feeling really embarrassed by this incident, but again I ignored it. On leaving the lift, Mr. Ali said, you're not the only person I've embarrassed with that comment. I did it with my own manager, asked her to get back on him for something he had done.
22 minutes.
My old manager asked was a female, but...
Yeah, I recall that.
In conclusion, where's the complaint? Where's the procedure followed here? He's concluded, he's not said when, he worked, bizarre. In conclusion, Mr. Ali's shown himself not only to be a bully, but he's not mentioned where's the bullying.
23 minutes.
Well, I think the accusation, and I've seen the accusation in more of the transcripts, that on occasions you make way out remarks, raising the pitch of your voice so that other people can hear, possibly for effect, I don't know, and that is a form of bullying to people. Anthony Stansfield has mentioned the same thing.
He's raised it in the transcript.
Yes.
He's not raised it here.
No.
I wasn't answering the transcripts.
No,
I can only
know,
answer
I
the
know,
complaints.
I know. Yes, I appreciate that.
And if he's brought it up in the transcript, he's not brought it up here. It should therefore not have been accepted. The guide specifically says,
Well,
I can't answer complaints if you don't tell me what they are.
No, I accept that.
I mean, you can't use the grievances to say I was found guilty of these complaints because you didn't accuse me of them in the first place.
Sorry, I think we're getting off the track here. The sort of thing that is described there by Tim is something that's been described of you by others in different circumstances, where you have made what are claimed to be fairly outrageous comments in a fairly loud voice so that others can hear.
Unlike the other case, no complaint was put in at the time.
No.
And they can't say what date it was, and there's no evidence I was at work.
No,
Can I ask what these outrageous comments are that we're looking at?
I think when we get on to the Anthony Stansfield one, we'll come to one.
Right.
From memory.
In conclusion, Mr. Ali shown himself not only to be a bully who was constantly victimised, so was accused of victimisation, as I said to the police, which is something the civil service haven't told the police. So I hopefully you two, as witnesses, will confirm to the police that I am speaking the truth about criminal allegations. Over many months, he is also not willing to take responsibility for his own actions, and opinionated attitude has caused nothing but problems within the team. Someone else who seems to know what's going on. Mr. Ali is not only embarrassing me on many occasions, but he has had an effect on my confidence, and the whole experience has been stressful and left me feeling very angry and demoralised by the childlike treatment I have received at the hands of Mr. Andi Ali. Why is this being treated as an equal opportunities complaint?
25 minutes, 30 seconds.
Can I borrow it again?
Certainly.
25 minutes, 40 seconds.
Well, I think the comment about the conversation in the lift is an equal opportunities point.
Have any of those three other people that walked into the lift been brought forward as witnesses?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So someone can make an accusation against Andy, but they can't get the people who heard that to come forward to substantiate
Well,
what
at
he
the
heard.
end of the day, as I said to you, the investigators will do their best to get the evidence, but it may not be possible always to get that evidence.
Well, if you can't get hold of that evidence, then that one should be struck out, and we shouldn't be discussing it, because the onus shouldn't be on us
26 minutes,
to give evidence to prove why Andy's done it. The evidence should be there to prove why he should be found guilty of things, if he is going to be found guilty of things. Now, if someone's accusing Andy of doing something which happened in front of three other people, bring those people forward and let's get a statement off them. Otherwise, I'm sorry, that one should be scrubbed as well, because there's nothing there. There's no hard fact there, once again. And if you... I've been in fact findings, I've been in plenty of other disciplinary meetings before when that person, if they'd wanted to, can find out who was in that lift. As I say, until that time, I think it should be struck off.
I'm sorry, why was it equal opportunities? You said because of the lift.
Well, you are accused of making a comment suggesting that Tim is a homosexual.
Was I accused of sexual harassment?
27 minutes.
Well, you could argue that, yes.
Was I accused of it? Not what you could argue. Was I accused of sexual harassment by Tim Fisher?
Sexual harassment.
So I wasn't accused of sexual harassment by Tim Fisher. So it couldn't have been an equal opportunities case on the grounds of sexual harassment, as you indicated before. Sexual harassment was one of the...
I'm dealing with that as, from an HR viewpoint, I would regard that as an equal opportunities matter.
Did Tim regard it as an equal opportunities matter?
I can't answer that, can I?
Tim didn't Tim could have complained at the time to equal opportunities.
Yes, you've made that point before, yeah.
But it's a very important point. I know you're getting a bit annoyed about it, but it's very important.
I don't see the point in repeating things which are already on the tape.
Tony Smith.
Yeah.
No date. I wish to make a formal complaint about Mr. Andi Ali with regards to his extreme political views, in my opinion. So we're going on Tony's opinions here. And his bullying attitude towards me. I've worked in the civil service for over 10 years in my current area since August 2001. The team generally work well together with plenty of good light-hearted banter without upsetting or affecting anyone. When Andrew joined the team, things initially remained the same, and I believe the whole team tried to include Andrew to help settle in. Extreme political views. Sometime during the summer of spring 2003. Well, you know what I'm going to say next, don't you?
Yeah. There's
Well, he
no
actually
date
stipulates that he cannot remember the date on that
Yeah,
one.
he says, I cannot remember the date. So,
Can I just point out that it is pointed out by managers when you are having problems in work with a colleague that you are to keep a date and times of any events that happen. For some reason this doesn't seem to have happened with this case.
29 minutes.
and in fact, it's my argument at the tribunal, if this matter sadly will not be sorted out beforehand, that there's no evidence I was
29
actually
minutes, 10 seconds.
at work when these events took place. I overheard a conversation at lunchtime between Andrew and Mr. John
29
Polachek,
minutes, 20
where Andrew openly said he supported Palestinian suicide bombers. This both angered and disgusted me to think that somebody I work with condoned this sort of action. I interrupted the conversation and asked them to stop talking about this because it was angering me, and I don't think it was appropriate discussion to be having in the workplace. Andrew ignored my comments and continued speaking on the same subject.
29 minutes,
I left the building to
40
have a
seconds.
cigarette. Well, as I said before, I won't go into the date thing on this.
Just one second, Andy. Can I just point out as well that with this
29 minutes, 50
said that Andy supported Palestinian suicide bombers. I can guarantee this is not truth because I know for a fact that Andy is a member of an organisation which is opposed to suicide bombings.
What's the organisation?
It's the it's recently changed its name. It's the it's an Israeli Palestinian organisation that cements good relations between two and encourages a lot of academics throughout the world. I can send you the proof of that through emails I've kept over the years.
I'd just be interested to know what the organisation is called.
Well, what it was called was the Israeli Peace Criminal Research Centre, but it's changed its name a few times.
30 minutes.
I get emails from them a lot. I joined in 2001, but I don't do a lot of work for them. I'm just interested in the work they're doing. I've also been a member of the Liberal Democrats since 2001 and a member of the Liberal Democrat Friends of Israel since 2001. Cowley Street will support this, and it will also be supported by Monroe Palmer, who's one of its chair people.
So
I have got photographic evidence of that. I've got pictures of me with an Israeli politician taken, over the years. I've been to all Liberal Democrat Friends of Israel.
So, I mean, from what you've said in connection with that, and that was helpful, Mark, there is no possibility that you will ever have said anything which was supportive of suicide bombers.
Well, let me put it, no I wouldn't. I'm opposed by suicide bombers, but let me put it this way, I've been in the civil service before these complaints were made 5 years. And I've worked on many sections and nobody's claimed I've had extremist political views before then. It was put in after the meeting on the 17th of December. And can I draw you a report, by the way? Have you seen this report?
Thirty-one minutes, 50 seconds.
Have you? It's from Anne Chant. I wrote to Dawn Primrolo because there's a case. My MP believes he may be taking this matter to the Public Accounts Committee if it's not sorted. Because at the start of the day, all this was triggered off because, as a civil servant, I'm entitled to raise issues if I think they fall, for example, under the Public Disclosure Act.
Yes.
If I think there's an and I did. But first stage of telling Anthony I was not happy was raising a concern to my manager I didn't think appropriate. Have you seen this letter from Miss Anne Chant?
I don't know until I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
30 seconds.
Would you like a few minutes?
No, I'll tell you straight away.
Well, could you read it out?
32 minutes, 40 seconds.
It's very
Yes.
important.
Right, okay. What this is the apology to you for what was written in the manager's report for the referral to BMI, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've no problem with that. I have seen it before.
33 minutes.
And it seems a fulsome apology for what was done.
Well, could you read the complaint out? On tape.
33 minutes, 10 seconds.
I'm not going to read it all out.
Well, can I show you the point? I would like you to read that.
Nonetheless, I accept that the department should not have written to BMI in the terms quoted in your letter, and I apologise unreservedly to Mr. Ali for that. I'm taking immediate steps to remind managers that comments and all referrals must be factually accurate and should contain no subjective opinions. Further, it is inappropriate to suggest to a professional the type of assessment or treatment which might be appropriate.
Okay, and that is a letter admitting that a manager who had never met me,
Yep.
Jackie Pye, wrote a report saying I was a dangerous individual with extreme political views. And that's a very senior manager in the tax credit office.
What grade is she?
Well, I assume she was a C1. I've never met this lady.
No, okay.
What grade's who?
Jackie Pye.
Jackie Pye is a C1, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
34 minutes.
So it's a
10
fact.
seconds.
And my complaint about this has not been investigated. I've not been interviewed on tape in relation to this complaint like Tony Smith and everybody was. I've not had a letter saying...
No, I know that. Would it have served any purpose,
Well, it
given
would have
that
done.
the outcome is wholly in your favour?
It would have done. It doesn't explain why she did it. It explains what she did. Why did she do it? You see, when Jackie Pye wrote that complaint, it was after I'd had that meeting with Tony, but before the people had put in the complaints.
Right.
34 minutes.
So the question is, what happened at that meeting with Tony, with Anthony Stansfield, that led a very senior manager to put in a complaint, to put in a letter
35 minutes.
stating I was a dangerous individual with dangerous extremist views. Moreover, she states that staff are thinking of putting in complaints.
Seconds.
Now, for her to have known that staff were thinking of putting in complaints meant that they must have come together to tell her.
35 minutes, 20 seconds.
It shows,
I see the relevance of what you're saying, and that's quite helpful.
which shows there must have been a
35 minutes,
conspiracy.
30 seconds.
Furthermore,
35 minutes, 40 seconds.
why was she trying to influence a medical report about me?
Yeah. Well, and that's what's said there, isn't it?
35 minutes, 50
Well, it explains
seconds.
she did it. It doesn't
Yeah.
explain why she did
You're
it.
interested in the motivation behind it, which you feel might have come
Well,
out in an investigation.
Chronically events. And we've now established there was a complaint. Anthony admits that I put a complaint in, because if it didn't materialise, there must have been a complaint, you know. Immediately after that meeting,
minutes,
which I said they tried to get me to drop it, Jackie Pye writes a report, and where she predicts staff are thinking of putting in complaints before they actually have done.
36 minutes, 20
She then
seconds.
admits that she's never met me or heard me express any extremist views. And then
36
staff
minutes,
going and putting
30
complaints,
seconds.
including that I have extremist views.
Okay. So let's just get this clear in my head. The meeting you had with Anthony, where you say you expressed that Anthony said to you, if you drop this complaint about me fiddling the figures, I'll give you an okay performance.
He
was
intimated if I
11th
dropped the
of
complaint,
December.
He
11th of
intimated if I dropped the complaint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to try and get at when. That was the 11th of December 2000.
Yeah, 11th or 12th of December, whenever I had that meeting with
Yeah,
Anthony.
okay, right. And then this submission to BMI from Jackie Pye follows that meeting.
Exactly.
37 minutes,
Okay.
Where she predicts
seconds.
the complaints before they've actually been made. So folks,
41
yes,
minutes, 30
yes, the witnesses
seconds.
are lying. From the information I've been given,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't quite know who said what.
No, I appreciate
You know,
that's why I
it's not only a
expressed
case
it
of I
the way
don't know
did.
who said
Yeah.
it, I don't also know what
41
was
minutes,
said.
40 seconds.
Claire Hamlin, I've put in a complaint and I expect the civil service to to treat that complaint seriously. As I've been told, said that I made sexual comments to her. or asked her out on dates. I did no such thing. And of course, Claire's not been able to say when these took place,
42 minutes.
were, and at what time. And she didn't complain, you know, at the time. In fact, she didn't even put in a complaint against him.
42 minutes.
And as I understand it right, Claire Hamberlin,
We're not obliged to put in complaints. I mean, if you do something that offends me, I have to make a decision as to whether I put in a complaint or not.
exactly.
42
But
minutes.
what I'm saying is that Claire was not sufficiently angered or
Yeah.
motivated to put in a complaint.
Yes.
Where it comes to sexual harassment, I disagree with you. I think you
Yes.
are obliged. I think you, especially in the workplace, and obviously where race or anything like that, where equality and diversity is concerned, I think we do have an
Where there's
obligation.
a potential breach of the law.
Yeah.
42 minutes,
I agree.
40 seconds.
And as I understand it right, Claire Hamberlin and Nick Ivel were more than just friends when I worked on that
42
section.
minutes,
Oh,
50
right, okay.
seconds.
I think that's not come up. But I distinctly recall that they were having a relationship, and I think Kay Cunliffe.
43 minutes.
That
Do you want to
was-
finish what you're saying?
I think Kay Cunliffe was aware of this as well.
Right.
But it's their own private business to do on a
Oh, yes.
relationship outside work.
43
But I was
minutes,
definitely under the view that they were.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm about to switch off the tape and the time is
You okay for time?
3:15 p.m.
Yeah, yeah.